disabled adult. How do I find reliable power students who actually want to do direct report professional work and better with disability community? Well, in today's video, I'm going to answer the two most important questions that I think I have received as a disabled employer. The first question I'm going to answer is, how do I find college students who actually want to do direct support professional work and who are actually reliable? And the next question I'm going to answer is, how do I manage my support team as somebody who is pretty high and has about 14 different individuals with a variety of different handles and availability when it comes to supporting me and my wife with a disability? Before I tell you the tools that I use to hire college students as well as manage my own support team about 14 different individuals, I want to take a moment and talk to you guys about the very simple hiring basis when it comes to hiring any type of DSP, but especially a college student. So the first thing to remember is you are hiring college students, meaning they will have a variety of different availability. Some of them might want to work during the day, some of them might only be available at night, some of them might want to work on the weekend, and some of them may not want to work on the weekend. And all of that is completely okay. You just have to decide if that is something you want to deal with, or do you prefer that your support have a consistent availability so that you are not constantly changing your support team by semester or by year? For me, I have decided that is something I'm willing to take on and willing to deal with, as it allows me to meet new personalities and make new friends from all around the world. One way that I help combat that different transition between the ever-changing handler and my wife is I do have a backup DSPs that are not university students. So when I am in that transition between when is my university student available, and what about my wife? When I'm in that transition, I am able to count on my backup people who might be out of university. So that is my first tip, is understanding that university students are wonderful and they're able to learn and able to support you. However, when they are supporting you, their handler and availability can vary. So if you can have a few people on your backup team that are not university students, that is something you really want to consider, especially if you are somebody who has commitment that you have to maintain on a weekly or monthly basis. And I have learned when it comes to hiring university students is that you want to make sure that you are posting your ad on reputable or reliable university websites rather than a fake at a point. While posting them in a paper note or at a bulletin board at a library or a pool can definitely help make your ad be seen. You are definitely hiding your privacy and your family privacy when you do that. So how do you make your ad out to the university, especially if you are not somebody who is currently enrolled at a university in your state? Well, that is a good question. I had the same problem that you are probably wondering about. How do you make your ad in front of the university if you are not a current student there or you don't know anybody who is a student there? Well, there is this awesome website called Handshake, and Handshake is a non-posting board for college students to look for employment opportunities posted by reputable employers like me or a variety of different business organizations. And the cool thing is most universities nowadays, from my understanding, we hire their college students to make a handshake profile and put their name and their major and their graduation year into that profile. So when potential employers look for them on Handshake, they will have access to that information. Now, later in this video, I will show you how to use the Handshake account that I'm talking about. But something to note about Handshake is that I try and only post in the university around my area. You can post in community colleges, but I have had better luck posting in the official university around my area, and that might be because they have programs for physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy, whereas community colleges oftentimes don't have programs that are related to those things, but that is completely up to you. Another thing that I learned while using Handshake a couple weeks ago is you will have better luck if you are able to partner up. You will have better luck finding employees for yourself if you are able to partner up with an organization rather than posting as an individual employer. I think the university students really like to know that they are working for a quote-unquote organization rather than some rando they found on the internet, right? So if you can post your DSP personal assistant ad underneath an agency rather than an individual profile on Handshake, I did find that I got more applicants when I did that. Now, unfortunately, I have no evidence to prove that that's what helped me or that's what didn't help me, but I wanted to put that in here in case somebody had the opportunity to be a member of a or a member move that might have in order to make your Handshake account. The next thing to realize before posting your ad on Handshake is that people are not applying to work at McDonald's or Arby's or Waterway. They're applying to work with you as an individual and support your rights as a disabled individual. So when you are writing the ad, making sure that your personality is written in the ad is also important. Don't just be like, hey, I'm looking for a personal assistant to wipe my ass all day or make me food or drive me around. I like to put who am I as a person, and I will put a picture of the ad that I post. I will put a picture of the ad that I usually post right here, so you can see what I mean by making, when I say it is important for you to make your ad personal and relatable. And the last thing that is really, really important to realize when you are trying to hire students is while a Buffalo university may rehire their students to make a Handshake profile and put their name and manner and salary on it, that doesn't necessarily mean that those people will automatically every day be like, oh yeah, I have to promote on Handshake, and I have to see if any new employment opportunity are available to me. Most of the time, I talk to our students, and they have never ever logged in to their Handshake profile beyond the day that they had it up. So my number one tip for you that is when you use Handshake, it is always important to post your ad and then find the candidate that you want to reach out to, and then open up their resume and see if they have a phone number or an email, and then writing them a personal email or text message related to what you read in their resume will definitely help you be able to find the candidate that you are hoping to find. Okay, so now that I talked to you about the hiring basis, let's get right into what you have written a Handshake ad. Now what? I'll be right back. So now that you understand the basis of hiring students, I want to take a minute and show you around the Handshake website so that you a new username or password. I know that some people remembering all that information can be very difficult. What you have created a Handshake profile and a Handshake account. You can easily create a new ad for your direct support professional. And if you are interested on how to create the actual ad, I hope I will be able to find more videos on the basic Handshake tutorial. And if I'm able to find them, I'll go ahead and put them here and here. But for this video, I'm not going to walk you through creating an entire ad. I just want to showcase one of my favorite features when it comes to hiring direct support professionals, and that is the candidate feature. So what you have created an ad, you can then go into the ad. As you can see, I titled my ad Personal Sales Assistant. Then you have a drop-down menu that allows you to have the overview, the tools that they are in, what candidates, what this applicant, and then of course a detailed description of the ad that you posted. But for this video, I wanted to talk about the what candidate feature as well as the shortlist candidate feature. So after you create and write an ad on Handshake, you can then go ahead and head over to your advertising dashboard like I am here, and you can then press on the middle dot and hit edit hiring criteria. What you hit edit hiring criteria, an AI robotic summary will come up based on what you wrote in the ad. So it has key different features: must have, nice to have, and then criteria to avoid. So for example, for my ad, I have customer assistant with personal hygiene and restroom assistant, because that is mainly how much support I will need. Customer to adapt to training handler and plan participate in healthcare environment. And the reason I say that one is because, like I said earlier in this video, I have a very more support team, and everyone has a different handler, and you really never know what your day is going to look like. So if that is something that is important to you, I definitely put it in here. Hard communication skills to manage multiple tasks effectively, including patient care, documentation, and handling. I also like to put the year. Of when people are graduating, or when I want them to be graduating. That way you can kind of bite the bullet and maybe not have people leaving all the time. So when I post my ad, I usually say that year 2027 with manner when it comes to who you want to work for you. I also think this is very important to realize that being a personal assistant or direct support professional is that it is a very personal relationship building job. So when you are hiring someone, it might be a good idea to put like interest in nursing, occupational therapy, heat and maintenance, healing sciences, exercise science, psychology, social work, pre-med, health sciences, and all that. But if someone doesn't have those criteria, if someone doesn't have that criteria, and they match your personality as a person and they're willing to learn, I highly recommend that you do consider them for the job, especially if you are not medically complex. But having that criteria in the must-have will help you determine if that person is good or not, and then communication skills. And then down in the nice-to-have section, I have passionate about caregiving and patient support, previous experience caregiving, interest in adaptive technology. So here you might want to put if your daughter or son really likes video games, you might want to put interest in video games. Or if they really like wildlife, you might want to put interest in wildlife. That way you have atmospheres that are related to your personality and not in the healthcare field. I also like to put like hospital around big dogs or hospital around animals. And also allow you to put the criteria you want to avoid. And that is up to you as a person. So why do you want to edit the hiring criteria, and why do you want to make it as personal to you or the individual that you are helping hire for? Well, let me tell you. After you have decided and typed in what your hiring criteria is going to be for your position, you can then go back to your dashboard and hit on for candidates. And what that will do is the Handshake AI will bring up a list of candidates. It will bring up a list of candidates based on your hiring criteria. So as you can see, I have a list of candidates that might be good for me, and it tells me what who they're going to with. I know you might won't be able to see, but trust me on this, and then what major, and then underneath that, it will have what they think is matching criteria for your ad. So as you can see, this person is currently pursuing a nursing degree and graduate May 27th, experience in meal preparation and meditation necessity, and then demonstrate community community, demonstrate customer service. So I don't think I personally would hire that person because it doesn't match my hiring criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and hit remove. And then once you hit remove, it gives you an opportunity to tell them why you don't like this candidate. But I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this video. The next candidate provided assistance with hiring and safety support to your own assistant resident with daily needs at a facility and develop independent reading. That is a candidate that I would like to potentially reach out to. So I'm going to put that on my shortlist. And you can just hit hit. Once you have a candidate on your shortlist, you will be able to see all the people that you put in on your shortlist. And what is a shortlist and why might you want to use it? Well, a shortlist is basically a list of people that you are interested in potentially hiring. And you might want to use a shortlist so that you can weed out the best candidates for your work. And these are the people that you want to pick on and read their profile and potentially message them on text message or email.